The Killers present some of their best songs in years on this album. However, overall, it probably isn't that strong. And to be honest, at this point I've kind of accepted that The Killers are one of those bands that put out great singles, but when the album comes out there's only like a couple of tracks here that you're really gonna pick out. However, there is a big exception when it comes to their first two records, Hot Fuss and Sam's Town. Mr. Brightside, When You Were Young, Somebody Told Me, and even during like the late 2000s they still put out some pretty decent tracks like Spaceman, and I didn't even think Human was that bad either. I do admit that The Killers do, like, lyrically border on the edge of sheer ridiculousness, but I feel like at their best they can have a lot of emotional weight and emotional punch to their songs, especially when it comes to like the bridge of When You Were Young, or just the vocal passion on the track Mr. Brightside. These guys can write very good melodies, catchy hooks. Even though I have had an appreciation for the conceptual aspect of albums like Sam's Town, I don't necessarily see it as my favourite part of their music. And then their 2012 record Battleborn was easily my least favourite album of theirs. Didn't really like it at all. They were channeling the style of heartland rock, and I found the results to be just so corny. Very obviously grandiose and ambitious, but it just sounded like this combination of new wave and synth pop with heartland rock just sounded really gross. But anyways, that's just me. This new album of theirs is a bit of a step up. Although it has its weak cuts, and although it kind of underwhelms, like especially at the end with the track Have All the Songs Been Written, which is kind of a fitting question because by the end of the album I'm kind of wondering, yeah, this album doesn't feel like it's really ended that well. But it has songs like the disco-flavoured The Man. I love the bass line on this thing. I love the punchy chorus with Brandon Flowers' falsetto. You're looking at the man. It's got an awesome groove. You can really just kind of dance to it.
I got money in the bank. I got news for you, baby. You're looking at the man.
Then you've got tracks like the pacier and more upbeat Run for Cover, another fantastic single.
You know you're not the only one.
And my personal favourite, Tyson vs. Douglas, which is a track with a lot of emotional weight to it actually for its subject matter, which is about Mike Tyson, the boxing champion, when he was like in his heyday, when he was the undefeated boxing champion, and as a child Brandon Flowers looked up to him as this undefeated, invincible person in the boxing world. But then he went down against Douglas, and it was just this harrowing moment of realization where even your biggest heroes aren't invincible. They'll still go down, they're still vulnerable, they'll still have their weak moments. There's actually a genuine amount of like pain in the vocal performance during the chorus of that track, which I really kind of connected to. I really thought that was an amazing moment on the record. However, elsewhere on this album it kind of just kind of dips and rises, and it's generally a mixed bag really. But it's a good mixed bag because there's no moment where I'm just like, ugh, this is terrible, this is awful. The only bit I didn't really like was the track Life to Come, a track where during the chorus the singing just seems so off-key and out of tune. I understand that some singers may not necessarily hit the right notes when they're being impassioned with their vocal performances, but here it just doesn't sound like he was hitting those notes right during this take. And by the end of the final track, I kind of feel as if the album could have had much more to it in terms of material, in terms of punchiness, in terms of just the great songwriting that the Killers tend to showcase. I don't know, I just feel like this album was okay, but not great. I'm going to give this album a 6 out of 10.